A group of half a dozen reporters were huddled around the desk of Evelyn Waterstone, the Gazette's Metro editor. They were talking under their breaths, worried looks in their eye. I wondered if there were going to be layoffs. If some of my colleagues, perhaps even myself, would be out of a job. That Evelyn had seemingly replaced the water cooler as center of office scoop was itself noteworthy. Evelyn stayed as far away from gossip as those who gossiped stayed away from her. Whatever happened had to be big. I walked up casually, inserting myself into the conversation through proximity alone. Evelyn Waterstone was a short, squat woman whose haircut resembled a well-manicured putting green. Only this particular green was gray with age, and whose broad shoulders would have been a welcome addition to most offensive lines. She was a disciplinarian in the gentlest sense of the word. It took several years for her to warm up to me, but when my work ethic and the quality of my reporting became clear, Evelyn began to grudgingly show me a modicum of respect. Still, I don't think you'd ever see the two of us tossing back a couple of long necks after hours. I made an effort never to stop by her desk unless I had a specific question, and Evelyn never stormed by mine unless I'd made some terrible grammatical mistake that, to Evelyn, was only slightly worse of an offense than treason. "Morning, Parker," Evelyn said. She held a black thermos between her fleshy hands and took a long, drawn-out sip. "Another beautiful day at your friendly local newspaper." "Morning, Evelyn," I said, nodded hello to the other reporters, who offered the same. "You hear about Rourke?" she said. I hadn't and told her so. She raised her arms dramatically, as if recounting some heroic tale. "This paper's most controversial sports writer, who incidentally once told a linebacker he would whup his ass like a donkey, got mugged yesterday on his way home from the office. Well, I shouldn't say mugged, because the guy didn't take any money, but Frank ended up getting the donkey side of the whooping." "Really?" I said, incredulous. "Rourke?" I had no love lost for Frank Rourke, considering the man had once left a bag of excrement on my desk. But swagger seemed to come from years of always being the one guy who was able to leave the fight on his own 2 feet. Seems some guy had taken umbrage with Frank's calling the Yankees the most poorly run organization since FEMA. Some disgruntled asshat from the Bronx. Anyway, this guy waits outside of the office until Frank leaves. Then he yells, "Yo, Rourke!" Frank turns his head and gets a sock full of quarters up against the side of his temple. "That's terrible. Is he okay?" "Concussion, he'll be fine. Police arrested the fan. I'm just hoping he might have damaged Frank's cerebral cortex or something, the area of the brain that makes a guy an asshole. Maybe he'll have one of those regarding Henry kind of epiphanies and come back a better man." "That's probably too much to expect." "We can dream, Parker, we can dream." As we chatted, I noticed a group of reporters huddled together in the hallway looking like they'd just been told management had decided to restructure by throwing them out the 11th floor windows. The group shifted nervously, whispered amongst themselves. Never wanting to be the last one in the know, I approached, said, "I thought Frank was going to be fine. What gives?" Jonas Levinson, the Gazette's science editor, said, "Frank is the least of our concerns. Though, as a matter of fact, something has died this morning. Something to be mourned as long as we're employed by this godforsaken newspaper. As of today, good taste, my friend, has kicked the bucket." I stared at Jonas, waiting for some kind of an explanation. Levinson was a tall man, balding, who wore a different bow tie to the office every day. He very seldom exaggerated his feelings, so at Jonas's remark, a flock of butterflies began to flutter around in my stomach. "I'm not following you," I said to Jonas. "Good taste? Jonas, care to explain?" "Just follow the eyes, Parker," Jonas said. "Follow the eyes." I opened my mouth to ask another question, but then I realized what he was saying. The eyes of every member of our group were focused on 2 individuals.